In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. The Colorado Springs, Colorado Police Chief Vince Niski decides not to fire an officer who commented, "Kill them all," on social media posts of Black Lives Matter protesters. The officer was instead penalized with a 40-hour suspension and loss of more than $2,000 in wages. He was also removed from his specialized unit and reassigned to a different position in the department. Now, Chief Niski defends his decision not to fire the officer, despite calls from the public to do so. He wrote this in his latest letter, quote, "While his statements were harmful and reprehensible, I cannot deprive the community of a good police officer and his services because of an isolated incident of an error in judgment." Teresa said, "Kill them all."
This man does not deserve to be on the streets, especially with that type of mindset. And what do you mean by all? It's just so many questions that comes into perspective, where you really have to look at the type of leadership that's in the department. You can't defend one of your employees for a "kill them all" statement. But what so here's another version of it, right? So if you wanted the officer to stay employed, I think part of it is to make it an administrative position where you're not on the street, where you pretty much, maybe are doing a mail order job internally. But he absolutely did not deserve just another slap on the wrist. But again, it also really tells you about the leadership that's inside of that office and the culture that they have and the union that is protecting him and these statements.
Avis, this is crazy. I'm like, well, don't deprive. He said, "Kill them all." That is a terroristic threat.
Absolutely, it's a terroristic
threat. If I, as a citizen, said, "Kill all of them," and it was a Blue Lives Matter, I guarantee you the cops would be trying to arrest me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, you're exactly right. That would definitely be characterized as, terroristic activity. You would probably be undergoing some FBI surveillance as we speak. It is absolutely, there's no excuse. He should be fired. He shouldn't be on a desk job. He shouldn't be there at all. As I've mentioned several times, decades ago, there was a report released by the FBI that warned the public that police departments across the country had been infiltrated by white supremacists. That is a white supremacist statement. "Kill them all" is a white supremacist statement. And what's also disturbing is that sort of incident is not an isolated incident. It was only a couple of years ago that there was a specific research study that looked at several postings on social media by police officers across the country, where there were voluminous number of racist posts. And in very rare incidents did any of them face any sort of serious punishment as a result of that. These are people who supposedly have the charge of protecting and serving not just white people, but Black people whose taxes pay their salaries too. And so it is just infuriating to me. It is infuriating to me that every excuse is made in the book to justify white terroristic behavior, when on the other hand, as you just mentioned in your previous story, you have Black people across this country who right now are rotting in jail because of minor infractions. It is just yet another example of institutionalized racism.
Okay. Back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding of services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.